why does the Brazil nut have so much selenium versus every other nut or food doesn't even compare to the amount of selenium in these nuts? And today we're going to talk about how selenium could take your health to the next level. And we're also going to cover toxicity. It's possible that you can consume too much selenium. So at the end of this video, you're going to have a much better knowledge of how you can use selenium to improve your health. What I like about this topic is it's the cheapest way to create the biggest impact on your health. You're talking 10 cents a day. Everyone can afford that, because what most people don't realize is how deficient in selenium they are. It's actually very, very hard to get it in the foods that we consume. Plus, a lot of the foods that we consume deplete selenium. So just by consuming 2 of these Brazil nuts a day, you're going to get over 1,000% of the daily requirements for selenium. So that comes out to 135 to 180 micrograms. Selenium is a trace mineral that works with enzymes to help with your hair, increasing the protein in hair called keratin. So when people are deficient in selenium, they get thinning of the hair. So selenium is directly involved in hair growth. And so the selenium in the Brazil nut is going to take your immune system to the next level. Wait till you hear what it does for the immune system. But I first want to also talk about testosterone. Testosterone is not just for men, it's for women too. Testosterone is kind of like the precursor or the building block of estrogen. It's also important to act as an antioxidant to protect the cells in the testicles that make testosterone and that make sperm. And so this is why selenium will not just increase testosterone, it can also help increase the sperm count. So it's good for fertility, but it also helps support the ovary. But I really want to dive right into like the big thing that I think selenium can help most people with, and that is the immune system. So check this out. Selenium supports a very specific cell in your immune system called the T helper cell. T helper cell is kind of like the higher level general that's in the Pentagon that's really pulling the strings and coordinating this whole attack. And if someone doesn't have enough selenium to feed that T helper cell, the amount of those cells goes down, making you very vulnerable to infections, pathogens, cancer, and all sorts of other things that come along with immune problems like inflammation. Now, if we take a look at subtypes of T helper cells, we have Th1 and Th2. And if this ratio is off, you're going to develop allergies, autoimmune diseases, or become more susceptible to autoimmune diseases, or even getting cancer. So you can look at that ratio as the perfect balance of surveillance for the army to be able to look out and make sure everything is working. And so selenium is like the raw material that feeds the T helper cell. And I just want to tell you as a side note, one big factor that is involved in this is vitamin D. So if you're both deficient in selenium and vitamin D, you're going to be in big trouble. The other interesting thing about the T helper cell is that it requires huge amounts of ATP, energy, to work. So you can look at selenium as a way to neutralize or protect you against all this oxidation. And we need healthy amounts of the T helper cell to actually tell the immune system to stand down when it needs to stand down. Selenium even controls the T cells to let it know when it has to have a fever or not. So that fever is controlled by that little part of the immune system that is fed with selenium. In other words, selenium is really important in preventing an overreactive immune reaction. And just as a side note, so is vitamin D. Also, the T helper cell helps prevent self-attack, or the immune system generating antibodies to attack itself. It actually prevents autoimmune diseases. And so the big question a lot of people have is like, why did I get an autoimmune disease? Well, obviously there must have been something that you're missing or that made your immune system vulnerable, which could have been a low vitamin D situation, low selenium, it could have been stress, other things. But mainly people are deficient in selenium because it's no longer in our diet. I mean, how many people eat Brazil nuts? Not many. You can get a certain amount of selenium from oysters or tuna or the kidney from pork, but a lot of people don't eat that. But the best bioavailable form of selenium is going to be in the Brazil nut. The other fascinating thing about selenium and the T helper cell is that it helps to support antiviral and anti-cancer properties. There's a really fascinating book, I'll put the link down below, and this says What Really Causes AIDS by Harold Foster. The virus in AIDS goes after this specific T helper cell, and selenium prevents it from being deactivated. The next thing that selenium will do, it'll help build up glutathione, which is the master antioxidant, not just of your liver, but of the entire body as well. So selenium is a precursor for glutathione. You can't make glutathione without selenium. So an average person is bombarded with so many different toxins, insecticides, herbicides, fungicides. It all ends up in the liver. And if you have enough glutathione, you can deal with it. I just like that strategy better than completely avoiding every single toxin on the planet, because you'd have to isolate yourself into some place on planet Earth, which is a lot more difficult. And glutathione is also really important in protecting the liver and also protecting membranes. Those membranes become infiltrated with seed oils and toxicity and all sorts of things. If you have enough glutathione, you can counter or neutralize a lot of that toxicity. But also on the flip side, when you increase toxicity, you deplete more glutathione. So hopefully you'll have enough selenium to make glutathione. With enough selenium from Brazil nuts, you can have beautiful skin. Also in the production of normal insulin. We've already talked about the liver, but let's talk about the mitochondria. The mitochondria depends on enough selenium. If you don't have the selenium, you can easily get mitochondrial damage. And when we're talking about hair or testosterone or even immune system, deep in those cells, we're really talking about damage to the mitochondria. That's where it originates if it doesn't have all these cofactors. Selenium also helps increase GABA, which can actually lower anxiety, help you feel calmer, help you sleep at night. But now let me explain why selenium is so high in the Brazil nut. The Brazil nut tree is in the Amazon, and this tree lives to be 500 to 1,000 years old. What's very unique about this tree is it has extremely deep roots. The roots go very, very deep into the earth, way deeper than any other tree in the area. And they go so far into the earth where they can pull additional minerals and trace minerals that you can't get at the superficial level. You have to realize the Brazil nut is not just high in selenium, it's also high in copper, magnesium, manganese. But apparently from a survival mechanism, what this tree does is it pulls up this selenium with the help of a certain fungus in the earth, which mobilizes this mineral. It breaks down the mineral, it gives it to the root of this tree, and now the tree's roots can start pulling up the selenium all the way up the tree, which has to travel a very long distance to eventually get into that nut, okay, which is really a seed. And so the seed now has this extra protection to become more resilient against fungus, viruses, pathogens, because the very nut itself needs an immune system. And so what humans are doing is we're piggybacking off of the immune benefits that this amazing old tree has developed over a long period of time, and we're able to use those immune benefits for ourselves. Isn't that wild? And even the different forms of selenium that are in a Brazil nut are bioactive for us, so we can very easily assimilate it. It's not just regular selenium, it's actually in a protein form that we can easily consume and use in our bodies. What about toxicity? It's actually very rare, but you could actually become toxic from selenium. If you consume 10 to 20 nuts every day for months, potentially you could become toxic. But what we're talking about is just 2 nuts every single day. Now, since I'm a health guy, I want to give you something to improve your health. And what I want to give you is my daily routine of what I do as far as my habits, what I do in the morning, what I generally eat to have a healthy lifestyle. To download it, just click the link in the description right now. Then I want you to watch a parallel video that talks about the importance of vitamin D on the immune system, which is an equally important topic. And I put that video right here. Check it out right now.